So now we have what is another situation going on here having to do with lithium. Now, people, I mean, yeah, I know people have seen the war that has happened with Russia and Ukraine. And believe it or not, it's not over. It's just that here in the States, we're not always shown a lot of the things that are happening until the last moment, until it somehow affects people directly. And that's what I've learned, when it comes to, situations having to do with, war and when it has to do with the US. And so you see this here, the MRI is heavily dependent on lithium. So they claim there's been so many shortages on resources, natural resources, and this is not uncommon nowadays. Now that we're going into this, we're going into a time where we're starting to see where things that people took for granted that you thought we always would have plenty of, you eventually look at how they're talking about it isn't as plentiful as you thought it would be. So it's saying there's a helium shortage, and the doctors are worried that they're running out of the element and it could threaten MRIs. And so this is like needs. These are not things that people want as you know I want to wear this or I want to ride around in this. These are things that have to do with life and death and the survival of mankind. So doctors are worried about this, that we're running out of an element that could threaten MRIs. And what do you use those for? You need those. So just think about it. The global helium shortage has doctors worried, meaning we're already in the shortage. And they haven't said a whole lot about it, you notice. And one of the natural gases most essential and perhaps unexpected uses MRIs. Strange as it sounds, lighter than air element that gives balloons their buoyancy and also powers the vital medical diagnostic machines as well, which an MRI can't function without some 2,000 liters of ultra cold liquid helium, keeping its magnets cool enough to work. But it says here helium, a non renewable element found deep in within the Earth's crust. So now this is when you're really playing with the environment here. And so you can't escape the fact that our environment, as it was a beginning, there's an ending to things. And how you utilize what is in the environment is what you're going to get out of it. And if you abuse the environment, that's also what you're going to get out of it. And so it says an MRI can't function without 2,000 liters of ultra cold liquid helium, keeping its magnets cool enough to work. But helium is a non renewable element found deep within the Earth's crust and is running low, leaving hospitals wondering how to plan for the future with a much scarcer supply. That doesn't sound good at all. Helium has become a big concern. So, this name I'm not probably able to say correctly, but it's Mahadevappa Mahesh, a professor of radiology at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in Baltimore, especially now with the geopolitical situation that's going on. Helium has become a volatile commodity for years, and this is especially true in the US, where a Texas based federal helium reserve is dwindling as the government tries transferring ownership to private markets. So these are the things that people may not be really paying much attention to because they don't feel that it directly impacts them, but it does. It impacts our world and it impacts the US in particular. So until this year, the US was counting on Russia to ease the tight supply. An enormous new facility in eastern Russia was supposed to supply nearly one third of the world's helium, but a fire last January derailed the timeline. Although the facility could resume operations any day, the war in Ukraine has, for the most part, stopped the trade between the two countries. And so this is how it impacts us. And it's basically saying it here. So now, four of five major U.S. helium suppliers are rationing this element, said Phil Kornbluth, president of Kornbluth Helium Consulting. So these suppliers are prioritizing the healthcare industry by reducing helium allotments to less essential customers. So these are related videos. The U.S. companies race to mine lithium while protecting environment. So see, they run around saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as environmental issues that are really hurting us." But if you really pay close attention to what things we use every day, it has to do with our environment. A lot of it does. And so helium is on allocation for sure, said Donna Kraft, a regional construction manager for Premier Health, who contracts with helium suppliers for some 4,000 hospitals. We're probably not blowing up balloons in a gift shop anymore. So I notice that you don't see a lot of that happening as much, but hospitals haven't canceled patients' MRIs or shut down machines yet. They have seen helium costs rise at an alarming rate, though possibly up to about 30%, Kornbluth guessed. That's a guess, but without an end in sight for helium shortage, for this shortage, the future of MRIs remains very uncertain. And I added that in there. It sounds like they're just being nice about it, but it is a huge problem. So just regular resources of the environment are running low. And haven't we heard there was a formula shortage? There was certain food supplies that were in short supply. There's housing short supply of materials to build homes. There's all these things, and if you wake up and start connecting the dots of all of this, you start realizing that yeah, there is something going on, but they're not really talking about it. It just comes out in bits and pieces, such as this. And then all the other things that you start hearing about are either there's short supply of, and then, then they come up with these fancy ideas to remedy the situation, but they're not telling you the full picture of what's going on. But MRI short for magnetic renaissance imaging or resonance imaging. I may not be saying that right, pronouncing it correctly. Sorry, my language. Resonance imaging has been a staple of healthcare since 1980s. Okay, so the massive machines provide high resolution images that allow doctors to see details of the organs, bones, tissues that may not show up on an x-ray. So these are life and death devices that can help doctors. Maybe they can see that you have some kind of something going on within you, and these images coming clearer so that they can see if you have some kind of cancer, if you have some kind of disease or whatnot. So you get the sharp images and you can distinguish soft tissue. This is what Dr. Scott Reeder, chief of MRI at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, states. So is central to many things we do in modern medicine. MRIs help doctors diagnose, I kind of said it before, brain tumors, strokes, spinal cord injuries, liver diseases, cancers, which I had talked about is becoming more prevalent. So the 3D images experts say are irreplaceable. Okay, so this is an MRI room. Anybody familiar with these hospital rooms or ever had to be in one? That is I don't know of anybody who hasn't had seen this, but or you will. This is at Altona. It's an MRI scanner at Altona Children's Hospital in Hamburg, and so these are very important things to keep in mind. So keeping an MRI magnetic current superconductive requires extreme cold, so that's where the helium comes in. With a boiling point of minus 452 degrees Fahrenheit, liquid helium is the coldest element on Earth. Pumped inside the MRI magnet, helium lets the current travel resistance free. So helium is how the our magnet continuously exists. So Mahesh said it's an essential commodity. So it is something that is needed for these machines to work properly. At any point, the MRI machine contains about 2,000 liters of liquid helium, though suppliers need to replenish any helium that boils off. So Mahesh estimates that an MRI machine uses 10,000 liters of liquid helium over its lifespan. Okay, so healthcare manufacturer machine that lifespan is 12.8 years, okay, according to GE Healthcare. In 2015, there were roughly 12,000 machines in the US, so that's how dependent we are on it. And making MRIs one of the biggest helium consumers in the world, far above balloon stores, of course. So, in spectators have an estimate of 400,000 cubic feet in helium to thank for suspending all of the tractor trailer size balloons in Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. So think about the parades that use the helium for the balloons for the celebrating, and then that's coming around the bend pretty soon. And then if you've ever gone in a 99-cent store in Dollar Tree where they have these balloons that use helium, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we're not using that much helium, or we're running out." Um, and so they might charge more for it now, or they'll say that they're not doing as many balloons, or maybe maybe they have some new rule about it now because of what's going on. So that helium would only keep about 2 MRIs operational for the lifespan. Okay, so this is covered to liquid form. Okay, so if it was converted to a liquid form. Okay, so it says there's no quick fix, so the problem is that no other element is cold enough for an MRI. There's no other element other than this one. So there's no alternative either, Kraft of Premier Health said. Without helium, MRIs would have to shut down. They would have to shut those machines down and they couldn't use them anymore. So manufacturers like GE, Healthcare, and Siemens Siemens Health Healthineers recognize this as a vulnerability to the U.S. So we are concerned about shortages in helium market, said Loannis Panagiotis, chief marketing officer of MRI at GE. And so this is what, some people may have seen people talking about this or heard of this, but it's, if it's not directly impacting people enough that they see it as an issue, then it's pretty much passed over. But when it becomes a larger issue and when you see more and more of this becoming the big thing as to why they have to shut down maybe some MRI machines at healthcare facilities, then it'll start to become the topic, then another topic to add to all the other ones having to do with environmental issues. So it says recently introduced one requiring just zero point 0.7 liters, and according to Panagiotelis, GE rolled out a machine that's 1.4 times more efficient than the previous model. So these technologies are widely available, though, and replacing the country's 12,000 MRI machines. So each weighing up to about 50,000 pounds is anything but a quick fix. Okay, so meanwhile, hospitals keep installing additional conventional MRI machines to meet demands for diagnostic scans. And so the concern is the shortage becomes so acute that we can't set up new scanners, readers said. So the University of Wisconsin, he said, has plans to open a new cancer center with 2 MRIs, okay? And when we install those systems, what's going to happen if there's no helium? Mahesh said that Johns Hopkins is also adding MRI to its fleet, and it'll be the same workhorse scanner as its 22 other machines. So, as the doctors dread the worst case scenario, scientists who use a liquid helium for research are already there. And so the suppliers began rationing it this summer, in fact. So Harvard University's physicists Mir Jacobi and Philip Kim shut down around half of their lab projects. So on the opposite side of the country, the University of California, Davis reported that one of its helium suppliers cut allocations by half, including for medical use. So the shortage is motivating us to figure out ways of doing the same experiments without lithium helium, Jacoby said. So the forced innovation may preview what's to come for MRIs, and it may be necessary, the shortage or no shortage. So there's only a finite amount of helium in the Earth's crust, Kim said. So once it evaporates off, it's completely lost into the outer space. And so if it was there, my question is, if it was in the Earth's crust, what could happen if we use all of it and it's not there? Wasn't it there for a purpose? That is my question. So that's another issue in and of itself altogether. So how does it impact us in that way as well? If we're using up all the resources, and if it was there for a reason, it had to have been there for a reason. Um, does it help to keep things stable on Earth? Is it a part of us being able to thrive or survive on Earth here? These are all questions that are really relevant, especially when you're wondering, if we're just using, and depleting all of these things, how is it going to impact us? And then not just by not having machine to not see the diseases, but what other, there's had to been some other reason why helium was there, you know, and to just use it until it's gone. And now, okay, now what happens to the earth? Not only these machines and these MRI places having to shut down. So that's the question right there. So we should be asking about that. And if there are other alternatives, what are some other alternatives? But think about it. In order for people to have all these diseases, right, there had to have been something in the environment that caused them to be an issue in the beginning. The brain tumors, the strokes, the spinal cord injuries, which some of it is like accidents and things like that, and maybe like stuff that's, but some of these things might be environmental that are placed there in our environment to cause these problems. Unless we're doing something, or we're eating unhealthy, or but then what's in the food, you go back to the environment again. What's put in the food or what's not put in the food, because the food that we're eating, they have to keep the color and they have to keep it looking like it's fresh. And they have this thing where they spray things on there to make it look bright and pretty, and then you buy it, and then you think you're washing it, but they've already sprayed things. It's already inside of that food that you're about to eat. And so it is, is that what's giving us the strokes, the brain tumors, and the cancer? And you don't only get liver disease from alcohol, you can get it from other things too. Some of the pharmaceutical medicines, if you take too much of them for headache, you can get liver damage. There's things that are placed already in our environment that can create these issues. But now that we're depleting some of our essential, um, elements, what is that going to do to people as a whole? That is the question. That is the thing that you'd want to know. How is it going to impact our environment if there is no helium? Is there another source of where helium is derived at? Other than just, you see the balloons. Worldwide helium shortage threatens more than just balloons. Yeah, isn't that the truth? So there's got to be more things that will happen when there is no more helium. And that is the question. How does it impact our world? And um, with the war still happening, which it is still happening, um, it's been quiet. Every now and then they'll pan to what goes on over there in Ukraine and in Russia, and between the two, between Russia, against Ukraine. And it's sad. It's like it has impacted, even though we're indirectly over in that environment. I've also heard, and I know, not to be the bearer of bad news, that we're more closer to World War III. I've heard talks of this than ever before because of the war between, Russia versus Ukraine, and then, getting other people involved. And nuclear war is what I've heard being touted. Is that I feel like if, even when we talk about the environment and the impacts of the environment against humankind, I feel like war is like one of our biggies that could just wipe everybody out. And when you start talking about nuclear war, and I think it was a couple of days ago, I saw where Russia had these drones that had bombs attached to it, and they could just fly it over. Um, and they have these drones that can shoot off uh, missiles, And you used to be people would do these things. People are still doing it. It used to be people would be behind it. You see them directly behind it. Who pushed the button, blah blah blah, and then they're not there. But now they can actually have a camera and see the damage they're creating and see where they want to hit directly and fly the drone over there. And they're building these drones. They're building the small ones and the bigger ones that can just fly over areas and just start bombing areas, and they can fly them back, or they can just get rid of that, and they have probably hundreds, maybe thousands more, maybe even more than that. And that's their new military weapons, that probably already been created long ago. I remember there was this kid, he had a drone, and he attached a gun to it, and I think he learned it from a relative. And then all these people from the FBI and CIA, they wanted him to they wanted to know who this kid was or whatever, and he got in big trouble for that because I think it may have been in the airspace of where it was like a no-fly area of any unidentified flying objects or whatever. So it's just these type of things, when they can make these type of killing instruments that can kill like thousands of people, maybe even more, that can wipe out a whole city, you know, bombs that they can attach to these drones. They can fly them over your head. They got drones, they can fly them over, and they can be watching you in your house, what you're doing. And if they don't like something you said, or they don't like something that that country did, or decision didn't go right, and just overnight, boom, 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 it's done, And I think people are more dangerous than any natural disaster could ever be. Natural disasters are no joke. It's not like you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, don't hurt us." They just come and do the damage, and boom, it's done. But with people, we can be just, if not even more deadly, and without even thinking, just boom, 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 just take out like thousands and thousands of people, or whole cities, and maybe even a whole state, if we're that angry or that frivolous, that we're not uncaring. It's become real cold blooded now, where people don't have any remorse for others. And so, if we can make killing machines so effective, and it takes money to do that, where we got all these homeless people and people worrying about their basic livelihood and needs. But we've got all this money to make military equipment, but we don't have enough money to house and feed people, and make sure people have safe environments to live. We're making billions of dollars and putting it in our pocket, making military weapons. Here we got people on here talking about, oh, the music is what's promoting killing. Well, guess what? Music is is not always what just promotes things. There's somebody behind it that's making money off of it. And whatever's happening in that time era, um, the music is telling a story about that era and what was popular then, even if it's something bad. And so you got music that tells about war, music that tells about love, the music that tells about, maybe a certain style of clothing, certain, things that people do. But here you got a time where now we're worried about just the regular elements missing, or we're losing out on, or it could be depleted, and you can not see it anymore. And so if it vanishes, how does it impact us? I feel like we're spending more money on military weapons and more money on political pundits and their conspiracy talk, and it hasn't housed and clothed people. If it's not housing and clothing people and it's not helping the environment, then it's what good is it for? It's feeding and lining the pockets of those who are not doing anything to help people. They're doing a disservice to people. That's what's going on. And so when you see things like this, just regular resources that we can be now no longer, it'll be a thing of the past. How is it going to impact our environment? You know, people did that. They used it and used it and used it and used it and used it up. And they didn't think, oh, okay, how are we going to put it back or how are we going to conserve it? They weren't thinking about it then, but now that it's almost gone, now they're thinking about it. And so that is the question. It's like people, the ones that are behind all of this, do more damage than anything. That's probably what causes the natural disasters to occur, because you got to do stuff to the environment to bring on some of these things that you see, all these hurricanes and all these things that you see happening more regularly, weren't happening before. Hotter summers every year. Yeah, it's brought on by what people have done, the ones that got the big deep pockets, that they have destroyed the environment, and then they want to blame everybody else, but you're the one calling the shots. So the question is how are we going to survive if those natural elements are destroyed or they're no longer available to us?